You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Let's do a brief recap of all the possibilities that could come out of this Moxy fusion reactor discovery. Electricity, rare earth and metals and precious metals that we could be creating in our own backyards. This is incredible.
Yeah, and it's decentralized.
Yeah.
See, what are the inputs for making that electricity? It is argon from the atmosphere. Our atmosphere is about 0.9% argon. So you can just get that from the atmosphere. You can buy argon at any air plant in your city. It's they use it for TIG welding and other things, so you can easily get argon. And deuterium, heavy water, comes out of water like the ocean. It essentially turns every gallon of ocean water into the energy equivalent of 30 gallons of gasoline, the deuterium oxide, and you pull that out. So, I mean, how big is the ocean? Yeah, so it basically, but it's decentralized. Anybody can do this. Is decentralized energy. You don't need giant refineries. You don't need, to go down to anybody can, you can electrolysis your own, heavy water if you really needed to. And so you can produce your own heavy water. Any country could do this. And that's one of the reasons Stanley Meyer always said, get your water from the ocean, not from rainwater, because rainwater is less deuterium in it than ocean water. But he always used 100% pure heavy water from the laboratory. He was another guy. He was like too careful to tell people what's going on, and they whacked it. But here, I told you everything that's going on. You don't need me. Yeah. Whacking me will do no good at all. It was out on, I've talked about this a dozen times all over the internet, and the papers are out there. They've been downloaded thousands of times. Countries are doing the research. This is out of the bag. So precious metals can be synthesized now, and rare earth metals and other metals, a lot of other things like germanium and gallium. They want to, Chinese are going to cut America off from that. Well, you can just take manganese and iron and oxygen in a high pressurized argon environment and use Moxy fusion to produce all the germanium and gallium you want, right? So much for that embargo. But you won't be able to put this embargo on anybody, because any country could do this. Any science research group can do this. This is any third world country, or I should say developing country. This is something that they can do, and they can make their own power supplies, make their own, Moxy fusion electrical generating things. They can do their own synthesis of metals if they need it. And but you got also another thing here that's, look, all the central banks around the world and the currencies, aren't they all based on gold? Mm-hmm. And if inevitably that gold is going to drop to under $100 an ounce, what does that mean for all those central banks? And well, good luck on making your central bank digital currencies, guys. So it's going to be a crypto world, because those central banks are going away, because their foundation is gold, and that foundation is going to start evaporating, or at least the value. All that gold in those vaults, it's not going away, but its value is. And the gold will come out of the vaults and into industry where it should be.
How do you feel about everything that's unfolding? While we're discussing how the cat's out of the bag with this, it seems like the cat's out of the bag with a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Since everything that's happened over the past few years, people cannot unlearn about the things they found out, about what they've been deceived about forever. So it's very interesting to see what's happening right now with what seems like winning on our side of things, on the right side of history. What do you think?
Well, I think part of that's the decentralization. The decentralization of knowledge and wisdom. All this stuff was kept hidden. And it was hard to do research before the internet, right? You'd have to go down to the library, you'd have to do the stacks. Now you can, with a click of your button, there's infinite amounts of information out there. There's a lot of garbage too, but you have to use your, you should be reading your news, not watching it, by the way. And so, yeah, all this knowledge is now, and they try to do a false flag, and people know it there. And I think that what we'll see is decentralized currencies, cryptocurrencies. I'm not sure if Bitcoin is going to be the end all of currencies. I don't think it's really not a currency, because it's a store of value now. A currency you'd have to chop off. The blockchain grows infinite with Bitcoin. For a real functional cryptocurrency, you would have to have the blockchain would cut off. So if you don't spend your cryptocurrency within a month, it like loses, 1% of, and if you don't spend it in 3 months, it loses 5%. It loses value until if you don't spend it in 3 years, it has no value at all. And that's because otherwise the blockchain grows to infinity and it becomes a real problem. But with a cut-off blockchain, people could make their own, people could make their own, a local cryptocurrency that runs off distributed phones, because the phones could call each other. There's actually a device. That's what McAfee was making before they killed him. He was making a device you'd stick on the bottom of your phone, which allowed you to communicate with all the other phones in the neighborhood. And so you'd make your local network. And then that phone could, and then you could make your own local currency with a blockchain that cuts off. So either you spend it or it goes away. So you can't really accumulate it. It isn't a store of value. It's just a currency. And you could make like your own local currencies that they can't control, that they can't tax. So I'm seeing a decentralized. You've got decentralized energy now. You've got decentralized precious metals production. You've got decentralized currencies. You've got decentralized knowledge, because a lot of they're coming up with this new distributed internet where there's no central modes. It's like everything. So that's phones or your computer goes with other computers. Maybe it's still using the internet in a sense, but it's a non-distributed, and those things can't be controlled.
Yeah.
And that's what I think what we're seeing is the breakdown, is we're seeing the power structures that control us all. Because the democracy is a fraud. They just fix the elections, and they've been doing this for decades. Republican or Democrat, they fix the elections for the people, and that's why they don't have term limits. They like the Nancy Pelosi's that've been around forever because they bribed them. They got them on tape. Look at all those. Why don't we know who Epstein has on tape, right? All of those congressmen and everybody that went there to the island or flew in those things. I'm not saying, but Robert Kennedy Jr., he flew on. Epstein was a Mossad agent, and Robert Kennedy Jr. he cares about children, but he doesn't care about the children of Gaza. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but because they probably have him on film.
Yeah.
And we don't know who they have on film, and Epstein was just one of dozens of that. They had some. It came out recently, some prostitution ring. Koreans were involved. I don't know if it was North Koreans or who was exactly doing, but there's another blackmail. I mean, this is common blackmailing techniques forever, and they got them on. And I don't think anybody in politics is allowed to rise anywhere unless they got some dirt on them. I mean, it only came out in the last 5 to 10 years that the CIA had been paying, like Walter Cronkite and Harry Reasoner, every media person we got, and it's still going on today, by the way, gets 2 checks. You get a check from your media company, and you get a check from the CIA, or roundabout. I'm sure they have shell companies that do that. Yeah, and it's not just there. I mean, Jay Weidner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Weidner was recalling a story of a friend of his. His friend, one of his friend's friend, had been a federal judge, right? And he was dying of cancer. He had like a week left to live. So he just invited all of his friends to come, and they talked about his life, and probably drank alcoholic beverages and whatever. But he didn't allow anybody to record it. But he did tell the story about his life, and he talked about like when he became a federal judge. He was appointed for a reason, right? Because he was somebody that they wanted to put in there. So he said they were watching him for 3 years. And then after 3 years was over, all of a sudden these packages started showing up at his house with 4 to 5 times his salary in cash.
Whoa.
And the IRS never seemed to bother about him with this extra income. And so you can see, so every federal judge after 3 years is on the take.
Yeah.
If they did it to him, sure they did it to everyone. And that means almost every one of the Supreme Court judges we have has been on the take, right? And then the media people, they're on the take. And, and like, let's say AOC, remember that I don't know what you want to, she was kind of put in there, right?
Yeah.
When she came into office, she had zero personal money, right? She has a master's degree, and I think she was working as a waitress, right? After 2 years, they looked at, she have to file what she got. She had a personal fortune of $25 million.